Welcome to Tattooed Freaks in Business Suits, recorded live in the kitchen of the Personal Touch Career Services in Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Donna Shannon. As a professional career coach, I help people navigate the hiring maze to get to jobs they really love. In addition to working with job seekers one-on-one, I do have a book available. You can find Get a Job Without Going Crazy on Amazon, or you can buy it from me and I'll sign it and everything. Anyways, my guest today is Latricia Friend, who is actually one of our career coaches and writers on my staff. She also has a couple of her own business ventures going on in New York. So Latricia, I'll have you introduce yourself in just a moment. But for those of you new to our show, our purpose is to really explore and redefine the world of work, especially as Gen X, millennials, and those to come after seek positions of leadership that still allow them to be themselves. So every show we explore a topic related to business or job searching. And of course, we're going to talk about tattoos. Our sponsor is the Personal Touch Career Services, Denver's top-rated career coaching service. We focus on the practical tools for your job search, including resumes, LinkedIn profiles, job search coaching, and ongoing classes. So check out our ridiculously long website, which is personaltouchcareerservices.com. Once again, that's personaltouchcareerservices.com, or, you can just Google it. Anyways, hello, Latricia. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Hi, Donna. It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Sure. So let's just kind of dive into things. Why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay. So disclaimer, I am a writer for Personal Touch Career Services. That's my main side gig. In addition to that, I'm a fractional household manager and personal assistant in New York City. And what that means is for families who have a home or apartment in New York, in addition to somewhere else in the US or overseas, I manage that property for them when they're not in town. And then I prepare it in advance of them or their guests coming in to use the townhouse or the apartment. And then while they're here, I am personal assistant extraordinaire for any and everything that they need. Most of it in advance of them asking for it, because that's how it works. Mm-hmm. And so in my downtime, I do get a chance to work with private service professionals and those looking to transition into private service through my resume writing company, Career Documents, LLC, and subcontracting to Personal Touch.
Right. And then, of course, the one thing that we need to mention too, especially with our topic for today, you are actually beautiful Black woman out in New York.
Yes. And interestingly enough, you don't come across, I had someone in LinkedIn reach out to me, oh my goodness, a Black woman in private service. I was like, oh yeah, there's a few of us. I could name
them. Just like a straight man in private service? What?
There's a few of those. I can name them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But specifically, one of the things that I wanted to bring you on and talk about today is this is being recorded in June of 2020. And there's been a lot of recent events, and everybody knows about, Black Lives Matters, the BLM movement. And, I know as a company, I have not come out and said that we support, the BLM, the Black Lives Matter, and all the rest of this, even though it's something I personally believe in, mm-hmm. and have shared things to like my personal Facebook and stuff like that. And I'm sure you've been getting this question quite a bit because you might be the only Black person some people know. Like me, it's very white out here in Denver. Just so
I've been there. Yes, I have.
Yeah, especially in the suburbs. I'm out in the suburbs. It's definitely very white around here. And that question about, oh, well, what can I do to help? Mm-hmm. Or what's your perspective? Because, you're Black, so you know everything, right? Yeah. Are you my Black advisor?
Right. No, I'm not. I am your friend, which is when you reached out to me about this. I was like, I paused for a minute, right? Because there's a lot of people reaching out to me, and I have to take it with the intention in which it's received, right? I would assume the intention that I receive is the same intention that someone gives it. That's not always the case. So I did take a moment to pause. And my answer to most people is, if you know one or none or very few people of color, don't come to them with this, right? Do your research. In arm's reach of you is a fabulous device. It is a phone. And part of that smartphone is that it is attached to the World Wide Web, and almost everything you need to start your journey to be an ally can be found online. Every bookstore, every online marketplace has some list. If you have not seen a list on here's what allies can do by now, that is a different issue. Right? Which kind of goes along I think I know I've shared this on my website. I think you'll add it to the post of when you put the podcast up. And it's just it's a continuum of, where someone is in becoming anti-racist, right? Where are you where is your comfort zone, and how do you move through the various circles of your fear, learning, and growth to being an ally in this. And I think people should explore that. And it's difficult stepping out of your comfort zone. I get that. I do it every day in one aspect or another. And I think people just need to, it's not going to happen overnight. You know that for yourself. It's a lot of things you have to work through. Therapy could be part of that. And people should reach out and do that. And actually, the first thing I said to you is, I understand as a business owner, I get it, that I haven't made any direct statements as a business, though it's relatively pretty clear for the few social media sites that I'm on that I'm a Black woman, so it's a Black-owned business, I would assume. On my Facebook, though, I'm a lot more active lately, and a lot more active in the social justice world that, talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, talking about the institutionalized systematic racism that the whole world lives under, right? It's not just us, which the death, the murder of George Floyd has spanned the world, right? Because we're not the only country living with it, right? It is one of the United States of America's original sins. There's more than one. So it's part of that. So it's deeply ingrained in what we do. But Europe has the same issue. Australia and New Zealand have this issue, right? Other countries have caste systems. It exists. And so it'd be great if we could do with this and then move on to, as a group, and then move on to everything else, environmental issues and sexes. Let's just start here and keep moving.
Right.
Is what I say.
It's like one of my nonprofits that I participate with a lot. I do a lot of volunteer work along these lines. One of the things they say is they stick to their primary purpose, that they can't be the solution for everything out there. So instead, they're going to do the one thing that they do exceedingly well, and then refer people to other similar organizations if they have other problems that this particular one can't solve.
Right.
So sometimes I almost feel like I have to pick my battles because, yes, as a business owner, I have always tried to embrace diversity here. And I'm actually quite proud that every single person on our staff checks at least one box on a diversity survey or so forth. Not like I'm going scoring points. It's not like those Facebook things where you add up, have you ever been in jail? Have you ever been naked in public? And you get like my scores are always really high on things like that.
Yeah, I'm always in the high teens myself.
Yeah.
Right.
But, with our changing climate is that enough, embracing the diversity side of things. And then the other stuff is I don't post about that because it is what it is. This is what we do every day. I'm not going to make some special post to pat myself on the back and try to get marketing benefits out of stuff that's just who we are. Does that make sense?
Nope, I understand completely. Because after pausing for a beat, my first response to you was, you're a subject matter expert in your community, right? In the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, you are the subject matter expert for resume writing, career coaching, all things job search. I'm sure the social justice programs around may have heard of you, or when they hear your name, because we all do. I hear someone's name, someone wants to have a meeting with me, I Google them. I throw them into the search of the LinkedIn platform because I want to see what pops up, right? And for someone who comes to me as an ally, say the local NAACP or the local, whatever the top 3 social justice groups are. And you're in Denver, so I would think that the Colorado and the areas over there, I would think some of the nations, some of the local tribes have connections as well, right? So I would say start where you're known and you're local and you're comfortable and people know you, kind of know you, are comfortable with you, can do their due diligence on you, right? Because if there's a group that you volunteer with, groups that do this kind of thing, they know each other, right? It's just like, the top players in the job search services field, the top players in, several industries, for recruiters and staffing agencies. So, the world there, it's very similar. They know each other, they refer people to each other, they call each other and say, I got a call from this woman
right
outside of Denver about, so I would start there and offer your services there because they know you, you're local, they get it. For the social media, the thing on your website, I mean, for the groups that I'm in on social media and just friends, we see the big tech groups, the FANGs, the Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. We look at them and go, oh, so you made a statement. That's nice. What's the starting salary for hourly workers at your company? Can that be more than $9 an hour? Let's start there, because social justice is tied to poverty, regardless of your ethnicity. So let's start there. Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, and Google. Start there. And then that line is a little different. I'm really into fitness now. In one of the fitness groups I'm in, we're really proud that, since I'm throwing names out there, Peloton, has made a commitment. They're giving money. Yay, check mark. They've also, for their hourly workers, the people who put the bikes together, who put the treads together, who deliver them, they've made a commitment that in the next quarter, everyone starts at $19 an hour. Hey, that's well above minimum wage. All over the place. Good start. Check. A good portion of their instructors for Peloton Interactive are people of color. We appreciate that. We like that. But, 8 out of 22 makes sense. Damn it. And beyond your instructors who we see all the time, what about the C-suite executives? Who's your top IT person? What does his or her team look like? Right. Who's your top finance people? What does their team look like? Because we recognize it's just so much as what's going on behind the scenes as the people who are on the big 22-inch tablet attached to the bike or the treadmill, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we want to see. We want to see more diversity everywhere, and not just as your diversity and inclusion officer. Hello.
Yeah.
Thanks for having that position. One, does it pay well? Because as a career coach, it's great to have the title, but what does it pay, and does it come with stock options? That's the benefit, right? And anyone in corporate America, and not everyone is, I get that, but we recognize that the first positions that go are research and development. So yay, you put someone in a diversity and inclusion position, but when the going gets tight, that's the first position you cut. So
yeah, it's not directly tied to generating revenue.
Exactly. So so all that, when I hear when companies do that, and on the other side, when companies don't do anything, that all runs through my mind. But I don't have all the answers, because my Black experience is being raised in New York City,
mm-hmm.
Going to the school at the time that I was raised in New York City, and the work that I've done. I've worked at nonprofits, I've worked in corporate arenas, I've worked at quasi-governmental agencies. I currently work, in the luxury hospitality industry. That's vastly different than most people anywhere, regardless of your ethnicity.
Right.
So when people say, "Oh, what can I do?" My experience is just that, and I'm quick to tell people that,
mm-hmm.
because my first answers are all things is usually no. But that's just who Latricia is. I no, we can't do that. No, We're not going to do that. No, I'm not going to let you take that day off. That's my first response, regardless. So it
mm-hmm.
takes me a moment to go, and here's how we can, adjust your request to what you're looking for. So that's kind of what I think about when people go, "Oh, how can I be an ally?" First, you can Google some things on your own.
Right.
Then
I think one thing that would be important too is don't be scared to go and explore the reality of things. One of the best contracts I ever worked was over the summer of 2012, where I was part of a small team that we were redesigning all the job searching classes for people on food stamps, food assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting because even in 2012, there was still just tons and tons of unemployment. So we had everything in the room from people who were high school dropouts that were barely literate, in some cases were not even literate at all, to
mm-hmm.
people who had master's degrees. And it was very interesting seeing a very different cross section of the population, because every time we would go in there, and there'd be like 50 to 70 people in the class, and well more than half would be people of color. Mm-hmm. And the other flip side of this was well more than half were people with felonies, because those are the ones that have the hardest time finding jobs. Right. And this was like that when, recreational pot was still illegal here in Denver. So you had people with just simple drug convictions that turned into felonies, and now their life is jacked because they couldn't ever get a decent job after that.
And the systematic institutionalized racism says that was what was going on in 2012. And by 2018, Orrin Hatch had become a major player in the cannabis world on the corporate side, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's those things that most people just, they don't even see the connection between the two, that brown and Black people are picked up for even personal quantities of marijuana. And yet a former congressman, senator, I'm going to say senator, I don't remember. I'm going to say Senator Orrin Hatch, yeah. Well into his 70th or 80th decade on the planet, is on the board for at least one major corporation that's making strides in cannabis, because now everyone can get a piece of the pie. But
Mm-hmm.
what does that do for people? But once you make it legal in 5 states now, and
the recreational side is more than that. For the
Yeah.
medical side, it's more than half. I think it's like
Wow.
30 states or something now. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that big pharma is going, wait, what?
Oh yeah.
Wait, what? How does
Mm-hmm.
this work again? How do we get a piece of this pie? What does that mean for Black and brown folks who are literally in maximum security prisons because of 1 or 2 pickups or arrests? You know, but that 3rd or 4th arrest, and now
yeah, the 3rd strike rule, and you're
right.
You're out for
and
a
there
long,
are companies
long time.
in California, Silicon Valley, and New York on Madison Avenue that are setting up sweet luxury boutiques for all things infused. Mm-hmm. It's just, and it's interesting to me, the people who say, well, I don't see it that way. How can you not?
Yeah.
It's there's 2 sides of the same coin. I understand riding the edge of that coin, but at some point you've got to take a peek over the other side.
Right. Or like, I remember one time I was working with a gentleman in one of his classes. He was a young Black man. He was a high school dropout, and he couldn't even fill out an application because he was functionally illiterate to that degree. And he had to drop out of school to go take care of his family and just make money at like some minimum wage job at a burger joint, because that was all he could get, because the educational system failed him and he had no resources. And that's what systemic racism looks like, when your opportunities are gone.
Right. And people, it's interesting for people to go, I'm not racist. But when I post an article on Facebook by Tim Wise about social justice, if I remember correctly, the article title was something along the lines of, really, you're upset about writing? That's how this country was founded. What's the big deal?
Right. And it's like, oh my God, trying to talk to my dad about this stuff. So my dad is like an ultra conservative, and here's the sad thing. My dad spends all his time watching Fox News now, and I think it has literally rotted his brain. So like, to give you an idea, like, my dad is a PhD in mechanical engineering, devoted his whole career to like alternative energies and NASA and stuff like this. And now he says, now he says renewable energy is a waste of time because it's too expensive. I'm like, what? You devoted your whole career to that? What? Yeah. That's not. But anyways,
like, but getting older, you change. You know, life changes as you get older. At some point, you fight the good fight, and you go, no one's ever going to. Because if you're told that, if he was told that in every meeting, every new patent idea he had, every new, how do we make this contract? How do we do it? At some point, it beats you down. It's the same thing for anyone else in, their industry.
Yeah.
I say that because I take care of a 78-year-old woman, claims to be my mother. Yeah, that woman.
Yeah.
So
but
the age thing has a bit to do with it.
And the thing that got me and my dad in an uproar, and it's just like, sometimes it's easier just to not fight with him, because I know he's not going to change his mind. Right. And it was the whole about kneeling at the NFL. And I'm like, well, I totally support them kneeling. That's a strong statement. They're making a point. They're using their voice in the best way they possibly can, in a nonviolent way. And it got you talking about it, but you're, just doubling down on, oh, they're disrespecting America. But here's the thing. I mean, I raised a bunch of anarchists, like, so they have sat down during the flag for years and years and years now. They just... Yeah. James, he's nowhere near in the stadium where they're doing the flag things. Jasmine will flat out sit down in front of a group of rednecks. And it's like,
I'll usually stand. I mean, I have too many people in my family who are in some flavor alphabet spelling of law enforcement, and I know too many people. I've dated too many Marines. And too many of my family members have been in the armed services. I stand. I don't always do the hands over heart, but I will stand. But I stand because I stand in two different Americas, right? I stand as a Black woman in these United States, but as a New Yorker, I don't take a lot of pushback, right? And then in the neighborhoods and the buildings that I work in, I walk into a building, people are like, what can we do for you? Right, exactly. So it's a different, or when I work on an estate, somewhere, outside of New York, and I make a phone call and people stop what they're doing because the person that I work for, the entity that I am calling from, that's 2/3 of your budget. Of course, you're going to stop and listen to me when I ask a question, right?
Right.
So yeah, I recognize it's two different worlds. It's interesting to me when I do something on social media and people go, well, I don't understand. What don't you understand? Today's the day when I am willing to put the time for your understanding. And just the pushback and the fact that people won't answer. I'm very direct. On days when I'm ready to get into this, I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's talk about the article. And for someone to go, well, I understand you're deflecting. I've taken enough therapy. I've read enough books and have done quite a bit of personal development to understand that you are trying to deflect because it's uncomfortable. I want you to be uncomfortable. Damn it, I'm uncomfortable every day. This is 2 minutes out of your life. Be uncomfortable and deal with it, right? And if you can't do that, if you reach out to someone and say, great, you are making the offer to talk about this, I've asked you to talk about this, and then you shut down, you need to do more work before you ask that question. Right. If you can get to being an ally, your words and saying that I'm not a racist could really mean more, so that when someone makes a statement that you don't agree with, your first response is not, well, what about Black on Black crime? We can talk about that. I have no problem taking that on, but let's finish this topic first. I am tenacious. I have to be. Given the work that I do, I have to be.
Right.
Right.
Or like my dad's statement, it was like, well, cops shoot white people too. To which my daughter's reaction is, well, you should be pissed off about that as well.
Exactly. I saw someone write I don't remember which police union it was or something, and on their website or, whatever they said was, well, we shoot more white people. I'm sorry. Why is that okay?
That's kind of a weird bragging point. Yeah,
definitely. And it's like, did your union spokesperson read this before they let you put this out? Plus the fact that the disparity in images, right? So the officer kneeling on on George Floyd's neck, and then the other two officers very close to pressing their body weight down or against him, right? Mr. Floyd, plus the officer who stood there deadpan, no reaction, total disregard. Yeah. Juxtaposed with images of what did I see online? Two vastly different images. A Caucasian man running around naked on a lawn with an officer who had his gun drawn. And they were running away from the naked man for one reason. I don't know what he didn't appear to have anything in his hand or whatever. But you will turn your back on someone running, high as a kite or drunk or whatever his issue was, and he gets arrested. If he gets arrested, he gets arrested and goes home safely to his family, right? But George Floyd doesn't. Another image, Caucasian man, Caucasian officer with a hatchet. The person they were talking to had a small hatchet and was swinging it at the truck, maybe his, maybe someone else's, and the officer, and no one tased him. No one snuck up behind him and wrapped their arms around his neck. No one just took their gun and, shot at his kneecap. He went home that night. That's the difference, right? You can't tell me that just because of his size and there were 4 of you, and two police cars, one being an SUV. And he was calm and talking to you. Supposedly, the officer with the Floyd case who was kneeling on him, they had a professional working relationship for the officer's off-duty job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just too, it's like, really, it's just too much too often. And right behind that, there was another gentleman who was killed in Atlanta, and you talked to him for 20 minutes. At what point during that 20-minute conversation does it turn that fast that you tase him, both officers tackle him to the ground, and then while he is running away from you, you pull out your service revolver and you shoot him to his death? What happened?
Yeah.
When the guy with the hatchet goes home at night.
Yeah. Or the story, this came out a few years ago, but the picture resurfaced with everything that was in play, was a Black counselor working with his autistic patient who was sitting in the middle of a street and wouldn't put down the toy truck he was playing with. He was adult, but he had a developmental disability or autism or something like that. And the Black man, who was, he's a big, beefy kind of guy, but he's laying down on his back with his hands up in the air saying, "Officer, please don't shoot me. My patient is having a mental incident right now. I'm trying to help him." And the guy says more than once, "Please don't shoot me." And they freaking shot him.
Right.
While he's laying on the ground,
only thing off the ground was his shoulders while he was holding his hands up and talking to them. Yeah. It's crazy. So you can't, for people who can't look at that and go, right, it's wrong, it's wrong, or then bring up, well, the gentleman in Atlanta and George Floyd had, if you look them up in the criminal system, they had been arrested. And
that's a death sentence?
What does that mean? Did he do it? Had he been arrested? Had he paid his fine? Had he dealt his time? Then my understanding of the criminal justice system is that, okay, time served. Thank you. You did something wrong. We caught you. Time served.
Yeah.
Everything in you. And unfortunately, as human beings, do we color once that happens in your life, is everything colored with a broad stroke that you can do nothing else? That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I do believe education is the first place to start.
The poverty, I think it's not the Poverty Initiative. I forgot what it's called, but there is a social justice arm that is dedicated directly to poverty. And if nothing else, I think people should start there, to realize that the systematic racism, it's in every institution that we have. It's in education, it's in housing, it's in banking, it's in the criminal justice system, it's in everything. But if you deal with the education component first, and I think most people are most comfortable there, you can deal with, writing, the simple as writing a check to your local Reading is Fundamental program, right? If you, if you're a mentor to elementary or high school students.
Well, I specifically meant educating myself.
That too.
Yeah, my own pathetically white brain needs to take a look at some of the studies and really be aware of what's going on. And we already mentioned once the infographic that you shared on your Facebook. I'm going to put it on our Instagram so everybody else can see it. It's, quite poignant it's like literally the stages you go through to become more anti-racist and move into an ally space. And one of my favorite TV series of all time that deals with this in multiple different episodes is called Adam Ruins Everything. Have you ever seen it? So it's a very nerdy white guy, and he presents like both sides of any kind of situation, backs it up with a lot of facts, have experts on there that talks about things. Sounds kind of boring, but they do it with a comedy. He's actually a comedian. And it's really interesting to see all the different things, like the problem that a lot of Black people face in particular as they start getting in trouble in school, and then that leads to juvie, which leads to prison, and which leads to, okay, you never even had a chance.
Right.
Because the system was built against you. And it even starts with, he had one episode in particular about this thing about the resource officers in the schools, because a police officer is trained to look for crime. So you put a police officer in a bunch of high school students, they're not looking to support, they're looking for crime.
Right.
And here in Denver, they did recently pass a law or an initiative that removed all the resource officers from Denver public schools. But it's also interesting because it's not a one size fits all kind of solution, right? Because out here in the suburbs last year, all the families were going, we need more cops in the schools, because the problem was not crime in the schools, it was school shooters.
Right.
It's like, what's up with white people anyways? What the hell? Leave your guns at home. You don't need to go shoot up everybody.
Yeah. Can I tell you, in my community, I mean, I've had people say to me, when they try to divert the conversation to, what about black on black crime? I'm sorry, in my community, we call it white on white crime. Everything that happens in most schools, shootings, unfortunately, quite a few shootings out in the state of Colorado. There weren't black people, there weren't black kids going into, movie theaters and schools and shooting up the place. So what about white on white crime? Let's start there. Right. Yeah. Because
let's face it, our shooters have a higher body count. And that sounds like a real shitty way to say that. But dude, what about the guy up in, got the hotel room in Las Vegas? And
was my goodness.
It's like, I think that's worse than, a few rioters who are spray painting, F the police on your public building.
Yeah. I like Adam Drew and everything. I think I have seen him come across my feed on YouTube, but I haven't stopped, so I will add him. And if we were playing poker, I would throw in add W. Kamau Bell. He has a scene series called United Shades of America. It's been for the past 3 years. It is phenomenal. He goes into, he's a comedian, because comedians have a little way of, being able to take on a lot of issues, right? Stand-up comedian. He goes into a town to talk about, everything. And, United Shades of America, he talks about racism, and, they go through small towns and large cities, and they talk about the issue of the day. And, in small towns, they're talking about, the flight away from small towns and what does that mean? Coal towns, steel towns, they go into large cities and talk about things. They talk about a lot of political issues, but, as a comedian, I think you get a little more wiggle room sometimes. At least that's how I look at what he does, and probably how Adam Ruins Everything, looks at it as well.
Yeah. Backed up with a lot of facts.
Yes, tons and tons of facts and data, right? And if you can't watch, and those are two great shows I would say people should watch. You should watch an episode of one, and then by the week's end, you should watch an episode of the other, and see what you learn, and have conversations about that for several episodes, for a couple of weeks, before you approach the person of color or a few people of color in your life to have a conversation. Yeah. And as well as reading a couple of books. Reading is fundamental. Start there.
Right. So anyways, this has been a great conversation. It's really helpful for me. Hopefully it's been helpful for other people as well. So now we get to come to one of my favorite parts of the day, which is, of course, the tattoo of the day.
Yes.
But Latricia, do you have a tattoo?
I do not. No ink, though I am a henna enthusiast. I do henna often, especially during the summer months.
Nice.
I can't, I always say I started with henna because I would want to see where I would place a tattoo, but 3-4 days into a henna, I'm like, I need a little body scrub. I need to get rid of this. So I would not. Permanent ink and I probably would not do well, but I've had some really intricate, really beautiful henna designs each season. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a couple.
Oh, yeah, I have a few. I do indeed have a few. I'm getting ready for some more ink.
Nice.
I was all set to get my COVID tattoo done, so I've been thinking about getting that. And then it's like, oh, the latest thing in 2020 just exploded. Maybe I need murder hornets. Or it's like, I'm almost scared to put like a COVID tattoo on me now because it's like, uh-oh, what the hell else is going to happen?
Will you ever forget this time though? I mean, I'm nearing the big 5-0. I never saw something like this in my lifetime, so I don't think I'll forget it.
Yeah. Well, anyways, so Latricia, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, you can
but
get in
not
touch
to
with
ask
me
about
through-
your opinion as a person.
Right. Yeah. That would be a whole different conversation than what I'm having with Donna, because I've known Donna for a long time now.
2007.
2007 at least. Yeah. So
no, that's when we placed you in your job. It was like 2006 or 2007.
So that long. So that's a whole other relationship for Donna and I to have this conversation.
Right.
So I can, so I'm a writer with Personal Touch Career Services. So if you work in the hospitality or private service industry, 9 times out of 10, you're either working with Donna or I. So that's easy. My resume writing and career coaching company is Career Documents, LLC. Website and development, but I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram every day. So that's a great way to find me. And that's the LinkedIn professionally. If you want to connect, LinkedIn, Latricia Friend, I'm there. Managing 2 social groups there too. Good God.
You are a busy woman. This is true.
This is true.
But
I thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for joining me on this journey. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. And as my producer always reminds me, if you like what you've heard here, give us a like, give us a follow, maybe leave a comment. If you didn't like what you heard here, just keep it to yourself. Be nice for once. All right. So we will catch you next time. Thank you.